What's up, Coachable family? Welcome to the Coachable podcast. For those who are new here, I am your host, Tori Gordon, and I'm joined by my best friend and podcast manager, my roommate, so many things, my Nicoletta, my Nicaragua, Nikki Tita. Oftentimes she's behind the camera today and last week, or in the last couple weeks, she's been in front of the camera, and it feels good to have you beside me again for this conversation about authentic self-expression. And for those who are at home watching and listening, today's conversation is going to be full of our real story with coming into right relationship with ourselves, remembering who we are, and then allowing ourselves to express that in the world through our creativity, through our style, through our art, through our voice, and through our natural self-expression. And I can't think of a better guest to have to talk about this, because I have watched your unfolding and your journey of that return to yourself over the last couple years, and then watched you start to embody this woman and this like identity of, you know, who is Nikki without all of the labels and the identities, like who is she beyond and before she was given a name, and that essence, that true core essence, watched you, you know, learn how to and fumble through the process of figuring out how to share that with the world, you know? So thank you for being here, and
thank you
in advance for what you're going to share, because I know that there are going to be so many men and women at home that need to hear this today and to be given the inspiration and the encouragement and the permission to be themselves. Because you and I both have gone through our struggles with and our questions of asking who am I? Who am I? So I want to start there. Like, tell me a little bit about your journey of asking that question, who am I? Who is Nikki? And when did you start asking that question?
I mean, I feel like if I'm honest, I've been asking myself that question for 31 years. I think we all do. You know, I think we all can relate to some degree at some point in our life asking ourselves, you know, really, who am I? I think it starts at a young age when, you know, when we're kids, we freely express ourselves. We don't really care about how we look when we're dancing, how we look in our outfit, like how we look singing. It doesn't matter. We don't care. We just freely express ourselves. And somewhere along the line in, you know, preschool, I don't even know, elementary school, middle school, you know, we start having resistance towards our expression from the outside world. And I don't think I'm any stranger to asking myself, who am I? I think we all can relate to asking ourselves that question. And, you know, I think I just kind of drowned out the answer for so many years. When I would, you know, start to come closer to who I was, I would then, you know, receive feedback from the outside world. No, be less than that. Don't be that. Be more like this. Be less like that. Like whatever it was, I felt resistance towards it. So it feels like when I look back, I just kind of started to drown out that question and forget about it. Forget that searching and yearning for remembering, you know, who I am. Because I think the answer to who am I is never and has never been outside of me. It's always been within me. So the answer is always within you. It's a really fun lesson to learn about pretty much anything in life.
Yeah.
And I think more recently, in my own personal journey of growth and development, I started to remember that question of who am I? And, you know, to be honest, I think it was the beginning of, you know, some of my sacred medicine ceremonies that really pointed me back to parts of myself that I had hidden for so long, for myriad of reasons. And when you remember something that has been hidden for so long, it's like something you almost get fixated on. You're like, wait, what? You kind of can't unsee it. Mm-hmm. And throughout some of the different journeys that I've had, I have seen some really beautiful things that made me like, almost, I would describe it as like a long lost friend that you missed so much. And that when you saw them again, you were just like, like everything is right in the world. Like I feel at home. I've missed you so much. And to feel that way, like I have chills, but like to feel that way and realize that that's you, that like you missed, is like the craziest feeling ever. And I would describe my own experience in, you know, meeting that part of those parts of myself again as like, I can never forget you. Like I have to do whatever it is necessary to keep you present in my life. And just as you would a friend that you don't want to lose. And so I have gone on a journey of, you know, figuring out how to be the best possible friend I could to those like parts of myself so that, you know, she feels safe and wants to stick around and wants to, you know, be fully herself.
Yeah. So powerful. Like just hearing you, give that analogy of like seeing someone you haven't seen in a really long time. Everything feels right in the world. Like I have lived that experience, whether it's through plant medicine work, breath work. For me, it was breath work the first time I connected to myself in that way. And I'm like, oh,
hello.
Hi there, self. I haven't felt you in a really long time. And it makes me think about all the reasons we get disconnected from the authentic self and from who we are. And as you mentioned, you know, it can start so young for so many of us, depending on how we grew up and what our childhood was like. And how the return to that self requires us to revisit the child within us.
Yeah.
But I think about, you know, all the reasons we get disconnected from her or from him. And I know for me, a lot of it had to do with fitting in.
Yeah, for sure.
And wanting to be liked and wanting to belong. And I know now after the work that I've done on myself that we do that as a safety mechanism. You know, it's a primal need to belong, because when you think back to when we were living off the land and we were in tribal, you know, not even tribal communities, but like we were literally in a tribe. And if you got kicked out of the tribe, you were going to get eaten by a lion or a tiger or a bear. It's in our DNA to need to fit in and to belong. And yet that can go to such great lengths to do that we lose connection to ourselves altogether. And I would love for you to kind of talk about that for you, how trying to fit in or looking outside of yourself for where do I fit? Who am I? You tell me who I am. You know what I mean? Impacted you throughout your life.
You know, when I looked outside of myself and really tried to figure out where do I fit in, I think a large part of it came from feeling so much shame around like when I would express myself and people would be like, no, not that. That's weird. Be less than that. Don't be that. And so, like you said, as a mechanism, I learned, okay, can't do that. That's not safe. And so then I searched for, okay, well, what is safe? And then you realize that what is safe is what everyone else is doing.
What did you have to suppress to be safe? Like what were the parts of you that weren't welcomed or allowed?
being loud. I'm loud. My natural state is my voice projects. I can be very like witty with my thoughts, and they can just kind of like come and some people don't like that, and that is not, be more serious. I have always enjoyed being lighthearted. And so oftentimes one of the biggest ways I know that I was suppressed as a child was like to be more adult-like. So to be less childlike, and childlike was wrapped up as like joyful and expressive and imaginative. And so kind of that just like curious, fun, childlike curiosity that you move through the world with, I very much felt suppressed, like be less than that, speak when spoken to. My voice was a big one. In my expression of my thoughts, my opinions, anything like that was very much suppressed. And I would say probably somewhere around middle school, my creativity. I realized that creativity was no longer productive. It was not productive. And that was around the time when I realized that my value was around my productivity and was around, you know, what a good student I could be, what a good big sister I could be, just how good I could be. And that was around my productivity and my output and not my creativity and my imagination. So that's what I'm in this season of life, of like you said, of going back, you know, asking yourself, who am I, requires you to go back and look at who you were as a child. And I'm in that season right now. And the biggest thing that has come out and really been like reborn is my creativity. Yeah. And that expression.
Yeah. You've been doing something called dopamine dressing lately, which is so addicting and fun to watch. And it's rubbed off on me. And obviously people who are watching on YouTube can see that in your expression through your clothing. And if they've been following you on social media, you've been posting about this a lot more. Tell me about how that sparked something for you and what it's been teaching you lately.
Yeah, well, you know, we all have access to the internet. And one of the things I've realized lately is I've picked up on what I have, you could say, been judging. And I remember a few different people have come up on my feeds throughout, you know, some time. And they would be doing this thing called dopamine dressing. They're wearing crazy, and honestly, for me, like a little too much, like in how I would choose to like express my own like style. But that came through as like, wow, that girl's a lot. Or, you know, I'm not like hating on them, but I'm like, woo, that's crazy outfit. Like, and I just kind of felt myself judging that expression. And then, you know, through one of my recent plant medicine ceremonies, my joy came into one of the biggest lessons of like, can I hold my joy in the midst of chaos? And that caused me to look at, well, what is my joy? What brings me joy? What makes me feel joy? And one of the things that I came upon was style brings me joy. And I realized that I had lost that part of myself, and I had stopped really dressing in ways that brought me a lot of joy and just kind of dressed in ways that brought me comfort or made me just kind of melt into the background. And this caused me to circle back to when I saw those girls posting about dopamine dressing. I was like, I want to try this. And I just tried it for like a day and posted online, and everybody was like, oh my God, that's Uni. And like Uni is this character that I've like unlocked through, you know, kind of like the music festival world where you get to just escape your expressive like identity of the normal world and kind of like show up in whatever way feels good to you. And I have learned to do that in that scene. And then when I expressed myself in bright colors and kind of in these ways that brought me a lot of joy, you know, people responded and were like, girl, that's you, like all the time. And it became addictive to me. I watched this like version of me, but it's not even a version. It's like, it's me. It's all of who I am, just actually being able to be expressed for the first time. It's made me happier. It's made me stand up taller. Like I've had different posture in the world. And I personally believe it's less about how I actually look and more about allowing that level of creativity to be expressed. And that's, you know, been my experience with dopamine dressing. It's just, it feels like an outlet for my authentic expression.
Yeah. This is so cool because I think it's important as almost like an experiment for people at home to like try something they've never done before. Because when I was in the throes of like my quarter life crisis, I would call it, several years ago, when I was really wrestling with the question, who am I? And I didn't know, you know, I was so disconnected from myself at that time. Okay. So if you're thinking, okay, how did you know you're disconnected? My friendships were surface level and the people in my life couldn't really see me and I couldn't really show myself to them because I was wearing a lot of masks. I was filtering myself. There were certain versions of me that I would show up as in certain environments and hide certain versions of me in other environments. I didn't know what I enjoyed. I realized everything I liked was based on other people in my life.
Yes.
My boyfriends, my friends, I just morphed into what they liked and that was my world. So whatever music was cool that my boyfriend or my friends were listening to, that's what I was into. If they liked sports, I liked sports. If they were into whatever it is, that's what I liked, versus really asking myself, am I doing this because this is what I enjoy?
Yes.
Or am I just becoming a chameleon and blending into whatever environment I'm in? Yeah. So if you're listening or watching and you're like, that's me, for me, those were indicators that I was really disconnected from myself. So how did I start connecting with myself again? It was the end of a relationship for me that showed me how much I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
Because I was on my own again. Yep. And I didn't have this other person or this relationship to fixate and focus on. I had me to focus on. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do today? Where am I going to go eat today? What am I going to do with my time? And I was like, I don't know. What do I want to do? And then and then you notice yourself either going into habitual patterns of just scrolling or just doing what you've always done. And what I did is I took that time to really start to get to know myself and build a relationship with myself. So I went to salsa dancing classes. I went and traveled alone. I went on a road trip by myself. I started doing things that I'd never done before as an experiment to just try and see, do I like this? Is this fun? Did this light me up? Did I feel energized and expanded afterwards? Or was this a no for me? Yeah. Right. So this is just another way people can experiment.
Oh, yeah.
And I like that because it gives people an opportunity to see what they like and what they don't like and what feels true for them. Because one of the core pillars of what we're talking about in terms of self-expression is authenticity, which is one of the core values of the show and of our lives.
Yeah.
And when I started to make authenticity, I put that in the forefront of everything I do. I started to filter all my choices, including what I wear, including what I'm listening to, where I'm going, what I'm consuming, through that filter of, does this feel true for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as you have been returning to the things of like your childhood, the things that light you up, the things that feel natural to you. What does that process look like in terms of letting go of the parts that don't feel true for you anymore so that you can say yes to the things that do feel true for you?
I think the first part of that has really been giving myself that space, for me, it's been space to first ask myself what it is that is authentic for me, or what it is that I do want to express myself in or no longer participate in. So the first part was definitely giving myself space. And for me personally, that has been a journaling practice through, a time that I've created for myself, silence and space I've created through a tea practice to really allow the kind of dust from the day, from life, from everything to like settle and like be able to tune in and hear the whispers of like the longings from within, or the parts of me that haven't been given a voice that really want to come out. So it's first giving myself the space to kind of identify what those things are that want to be expressed.
Yeah, this is so critical. I'm so glad you said that first, because key point here, guys, you can't authentically express your true self and if you don't know your own inner thoughts and feelings.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't express them if you don't know what they are.
Yeah. 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 That's definitely, and to be honest, like
so simple,
I had gone
so
many, like literally it's probably only the last year, less than that I have actually started journaling and giving myself that actual space to come home to myself. Other than that, it was like a retreat or, something that you do like once a year and you're like, oh my God, I remember. And then you go back to your life and you're like, I don't remember anymore. I saw something today that said one of the most used words in the Bible is remember, because of how often we forget. And that hit me so hard because I was like, it's this constant circle of remembering and forgetting and remembering and forgetting and remembering and forgetting. And our dear friend Cam, when I told her this, she was like, I kind of think consciousness, or enlightenment is just
who can remember
being in a state of remembrance all the time. And it's like, oh my God, you're right. You like clear your channel to just always remember and never go through the cycle of forgetting. You're just in a constant state of remembering. And so, yeah, for me, I really needed that space to remember and to come back home to myself. And this is something I do daily, if not multiple times a day, if not in the morning, in the afternoon, it'll be in the evening, to really explore what's going on within, and which has allowed me to see, okay, that worked. That felt good. That didn't work. That felt good. That felt like you tried, but didn't get all the way there. And it's allowed me to really dissect what's working for me and what's not. And so it gives me the opportunity to like step up to my higher self, because I'm almost like collecting data on the daily of what, is feeling authentic and what's not.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
It's, you can't, I've said this so many times, especially in the last several weeks on this show. And it's this quote about, so many of us, one of our biggest fears, our biggest things that hold us back from being and expressing who we are is the fear of what are other people going to think. Yeah. The number one thing. Yep. I'm sitting in here today, doing things I never really imagined that I would be doing with my life and my career. And when I started this podcast, when I started this business, I went through the whole, thought process. What are people going to think? They're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think and I had friends say all different types of things to me. But the more you spend time with yourself, building a relationship with yourself, when you know yourself, it's like if someone came up to you and told you if someone came up to me and told me something about you, who I know really well, and they told me some crazy thing about you, I would know the difference between the truth and something somebody's just saying. Yep. Because I know you. I've built a deep relationship with you. So if someone comes out of the blue and is like, oh, you know what Nikki did? She did this, this, and this, which is a lie. I would know the truth because I've spent time with you. But if you don't spend time with yourself, how do you know what your truth is? How? You know what I mean? And it's so simple, but for most people, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Is getting into a practice and a habit of treating themselves like a person that they're in relationship with. If you spent no quality time with your partner and you never cultivated that relationship and you were not intimate with them and you didn't spend quality time with them and you weren't affectionate towards them, you weren't kind to them, do you think they would want to be in a relationship with you? No. And so we wonder, we don't do that with ourselves and then wonder why we're not showing up in a way that feels true or feels exciting or feels just honest.
Yeah.
You know, and this underlying current of one, self-awareness, which is cultivated through this time and space that you spend with yourself to even understand what is my truth so that I can express it through my clothes, my language, the stories that I tell, the jokes that I tell, like whatever, my career, everything is an extension and expression of who we are. And that's either true or it's false. It's either a mask or it's authentic. Talk to me about that.
I actually would love to read one of my journal entries.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I need to grab my phone.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Ooh, I'm so excited. Is this from one of your tea practices that when you wrote this?
Yeah, I've actually read it to you already, but I feel like in this context, it is exactly what you're saying about if we don't know who we are, self-expression, like how can we express ourselves? But it's also interesting how when we begin to express ourselves, we start to know who we are. So they kind of go hand in hand. So this is a journal entry that I wrote when I was really deeply thinking about self-expression. It says, I had been a chameleon for most of my life. Somewhere along the road as a kid, I felt shame one too many times and learned it was safer to keep myself small, to fade into the background and hide my self-expression from the world. My bright light began to dim, and all my effort now went into camouflaging myself to the exterior world around me. Yet my inner world was in turmoil. My self-expression was like a beach ball being held under the water. It was begging to be released, to stop being shoved down to a depth it was never meant to be. Throughout my life, as I got older and learned to strengthen the muscle of keeping this expression suppressed, which led to a total loss of identity, I lost all understanding of who I was. How could I have possibly known? I had hidden my self-expression so deep below the surface, even I could no longer find it anymore. It became impossible to know who I was amongst the giant closet of masks and costumes I created and collected to so desperately try to find the outfit that fit, that internal yearning for my authentic self-expression. Now I realized that I was never going to find my authentic expression from a costume. I had to fully release my expression from the depths beneath the surface I had held it, for me to truly meet my authentic and fully expressed self. I found myself through my creative acts because expressing oneself and creativity are the same. This became a sneaky way to release my self-expression, where my conscious mind didn't really notice. And now that my expression is finally above the surface, I deeply feel the release, the freedom. The pressure of trying so hard to keep it suppressed has finally softened. This is why so many of us get lost. We stop expressing ourselves. Society teaches us we're not productive if we're creative. Creativity is just a pipe dream, the starving artist archetype. We take ourselves too seriously. We stop singing, dancing, exploring, creating, drawing, imagining, and being playful. We become black and white robots that fit perfectly in unison for the matrix of productivity. We begin to believe there is no place for our individual expression, so we lose ourselves. We forget who we are and create identities that serve the lie we've been told. We think this is the answer. This essentially means we as society think we know better than source. We think it's normal to override our innate nature of creativity, but really it's the key to unlocking the life we're truly meant to live.
Amen. Oh, ouch. That was powerful. Yeah. I mean, I've heard you read that before, but it brings me right back to it. And I don't know if I've ever heard it put like that, in that way. And it just paints this beautiful, perfect picture of what so many people, I would assert almost every one of us, experiences and goes through. And it's that bringing that ball, that beach ball that's been pushed underwater for so long to the surface. And we fumble through that process. And you said a couple of really important things that I want to point out, which we've said authenticity is a pillar of self-expression, but so is creativity and vulnerability. Because there's something innately vulnerable about letting someone see who you are.
Oh, yeah.
Even allowing yourself to see what's been underneath the surface puts you in a vulnerable position. Like, what do you say to people? What are your thoughts on, starting to come to terms with the more uncomfortable feelings that we have been suppressing, the more uncomfortable truths that we haven't wanted to look at, because as we bury those, we also bury our joy and we bury our vibrancy. And when you talk about in your writing, like, we become black and white prototypes of like a patriarchal, productive culture that puts productivity on a pedestal.
Yep.
I think of a black and white world. I'm like, where's the color? Yeah. Where's the vibrancy? And it just, we live in a black and white culture where it's like, this is right and this is wrong. This is good. This is bad.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, like, what would you say to people who are like, I want that, but I want to protect my vulnerability?
For me, it came down to the very popular quote that we've all heard before, which is choose your heart. I have lived a life where I chose the difficult, uncomfortable, scary side of keeping up with masks, trying to hide who I really was. That's uncomfortable. It's like there's your spirit, you're literally crushing into this cage within you that it is not meant to be held inside of, and you feel it. For me, it came out in my physical, like dis-ease within my body. I got really horrible cystic acne that I still have scars to this day from. And I really started to look within on like, I tried everything. And it came down to, changing some parts of my life that were much more authentic to me. And all of a sudden, the acne disappeared. Was it all of a sudden? Or was my body desperately communicating that it needed help?
Yeah.
Like, our emotions will come through in our physical body as it's a language. It's trying to speak to us. So for me, that was uncomfortable. It was hard. I didn't like that. And so now, over the past couple of months, when I've been faced with the opportunity to show up authentically, to choose to be vulnerable, I got to ask myself, well, that's going to be hard. But which hard do you want to choose? Because they're both hard.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, what if me living my truth might hurt someone that I love?
It's a hard choice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But by not living my truth, I hurt myself.
Yep. Which in turn, whatever your truth is always it always needs to be the North Star, because even if your truth is going to impact another person, at the end of the day, you have no idea, no understanding of how that truth is actually going to liberate them in whatever way it is, because your truth is always what you're meant to follow, regardless of the ways that it will impact others. I've had to experience this myself and make those difficult decisions of, I can choose to suppress myself. I can choose to put my spirit back in that cage, or that, which is hard, or I can choose the other hard, which is to liberate myself and in turn possibly liberate the other person.
Yeah. I mean, there's the quote, there's no such thing as one-way liberation, right? So if me living my truth also helps liberate the other person, even if they don't see it that way at the time, right? Because for instance, at least I'll speak for myself. I've been in relationships at times that I was scared to leave because I didn't want to hurt somebody that I loved. But my truth was that this isn't the right relationship for me. And, they didn't understand that at the time. But what I realized is that like me being honest, me being vulnerable, me doing what I need to do so that I can live my most authentic life, actually allows for them to have the type of relationship where somebody can reciprocate what they want or what they need, because it's not me. So I'm actually withholding something good from them if I don't actually step out of the way and live my truth, because I already know. It's like I already know that that's not me. It may be in the context of a relationship, right? And the more I suppress that, I either have to go into some kind of addictive habit to numb that awareness, to be like, oh, it's like when the light comes on, you can't unsee something, because once you know your truth and then you betray your truth and abandon your truth, you will have to go to some kind of numbing agent to make you be able to manage your life, because you're living in opposition of what's true for you.
I've lived that. For me, it was television.
Talk to me about that.
For me, it was television. It was an escape, numbing of the total. I mean, I was in that sense of total loss of identity. And that was so uncomfortable to me. My spirit was like raging inside of me. And I didn't want to face the uncomfortable feelings that brought. And so I went into a dissociative, numbing state, which for me was through television. And that was a really difficult, period. And when I think back, it was because I was at that like rock bottom of loss of identity, of like, I don't know what brings me joy. I don't know the answers to any of these things. I just know that where I'm at is so wildly uncomfortable that I don't even know how to function right now. And if you find yourself in that place, I would highly encourage you to explore the things that brought you joy as a kid. I remember one of the things that brought me out of that time in my life was a paint by numbers canvas that I actually just hung up in our brand new home, kind of as an honor of that time of my life where I had completely lost myself. And the only place that I knew to turn was what brought me comfort as a kid, which was creativity. But I didn't even have I didn't even have access to my creativity to freeform paint. So the next thing that made sense to me was, okay, well, tell me what lines to color inside of, and I'll just paint. And that like allowed me to kind of experience that joy again and start to come back into my like vibrancy, and the lights, start to come back on.
Yeah, there's unfortunately no shortcut to, your joy and your vibrancy that allows you to skip over the painful parts.
No.
That is the journey of remembering, because what you'll find when you start digging up what's been repressed, if you're at that loss of identity, I don't know who I am. Maybe you just lost a job and you're like, I don't know who I am without this title or this career. I don't know who I am without this relationship. I don't know who I am. We all went through that during COVID. You're like, who am I? And if that's where you are, one, you have to, and I've said this a lot in my programs with my clients on the show. It's like, you have to feel to heal. Mm-hmm. And if you want to get to the fun part, if you want to get to the creativity and the self-expression and the liberation and the freedom that comes with being who you are, before you can get to that, you have to dig up the pain that you've been avoiding. Yeah. And sit with the uncomfortable emotions and process them. Mm-hmm. Because and what I have found by doing my embodiment work, by processing my emotions in a healthy way, i.e. via somatic release, breath work, my contemplative meditative practices, and then actually feeling my feelings, crying my tears, screaming into a pillow, whatever I need to do, is on the other side of those tears is relief. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it's laughter. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I can't get to the laughter that feels true for me until I cry the tears.
Well, what is it that you said? We talked about this a lot at the beginning of the year when we were all talking about our themes for the year. And I believe your theme was like expression in a lot of ways. It's like if you're feeling in a state of suppression, so you're suppressing yourself, there's pieces of you that are not alive, you have buried them below. If you're suppressing any of your feelings, the opposite of that is expression. Express yourself.
If you're feeling depressed, it's because something is repressed. Yes. And the only way you can move through that is through expression. Yes. That is the medicine that we all need, is safe places to say the thing you're scared to say. Yes. Even if that's in the privacy of your own heart, if that starts in the privacy of your own bedroom with a journal, right? Like where you finally admit to yourself the thing that you've been scared to admit, or, it comes out in a painting, or it comes out in a dance, or it comes out in different ways, but you have to find these outlets to express it. And those are the different ways that we bring it to the surface. So it's through art, it's through movement, it's through sound, it's through our voice. Everything is an extension of that. When how you cook your meals, what your morning routine is, your nighttime routine, like every little aspect of your life, we're like, where am I living in a state of suppression where I just wasn't fully honest or real, or I'm like, it's just not like, okay. Or I'm just gonna say I'm fine because I just want to avoid this conflict versus it's like, where all the ways we do that and how many times a day do we do that? Yep.
One of the best books that I've read that really has helped me in my journey of self-expression is The Creative Acts by Rick Rubin. In that book, he literally starts the book out by defining artist and like what a creative act is. And it's basically that we are all artists because every act that we make is a creative act. So if you don't identify as an artist, as in a painter or a sculpture artist, you're an artist if you cook. You're an artist if you speak. You're an artist if you put clothes on your body. You're an art. It redefines this concept that every act that you do is a creative act, which allowed me to really think about my creativity and expression differently. And I know that this is popular or this is present in your life right now in your cooking era, and how you've described how that's allowed you to like express yourself even differently. And I think really I would recommend that book to everyone. Please go read The Creative Acts by Rick Rubin, because it really allows you to reconsider what expression, creativity means in even the smallest of ways.
Yeah, I think that's so good. So many people have recommended that book, and I love it myself. Because it's one of those kind of life-changing books that makes you rethink how you think about life. Oh yeah. Because, we're not doing a episode on manifestation. We could. And what is manifestation? The creative act.
Yeah.
We are constantly all the day, every day, 24/7 manifesting. We are creating either a world we want to live in or a world we don't want to live in, a world that makes us feel good or a world that doesn't, a world that is an expression of our hearts or is an expression of our fear, and the question you have to ask yourself is like, which world do I want to live in? Even down to the every act and whatever you do it with your heart.
Oof.
Like whatever you do, let it come from your heart. But there's a process to that. There's a journey of coming back to your heart.
Of even knowing what's on your heart.
What's on your heart. But okay, if you're like, I don't know what's on your heart, what breaks your heart is a great place to start.
It's true.
What pisses you off? What breaks your heart? Those are things that will also point you back to what you care about, what your values are. If you don't have an inner compass, which we all do, but if you're disconnected from your own inner compass, which is your authentic code or your personal value system, you don't have anything to filter your choices through. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about how your personal values play a role in, like, what are some of your personal values and how do they play a role in your expression? How are they correlated?
It's a great question. I remember this is actually a great question to ask yourself if you don't know where you need to express yourself or what is on your heart or what brings you joy, is to ask yourself, what are your personal values? Because I remember when you asked this in our women's group, I was like, Tori, how could you possibly ask such a hard question? Like, what the heck? And that made me realize that I didn't know what my own personal values were. I hadn't defined those. So definitely recommend sitting down with yourself, creating some space, journaling. What are your personal values? And I think the two that keep coming back, especially around the world of self-expression, is, which we've touched on already, which is authenticity. And how can you have a personal value of authenticity if you're not living that out? And so it's a constant question I get to ask myself of, was that authentic? Did I show up authentically today? If this is a value of mine, am I holding myself to this standard? Am I holding myself to this value? And I ask that through what I wear, how I spoke. Did I use my voice? Was the work that I did today, my best effort? Was it authentically mine? Did I try to copy someone? Was that my authentic creative expression? And the second is freedom. This is a very high value of mine. And freedom for me is the ability to freely express whatever it is that is in question in that moment. And so when it comes to self-expression, when I think of my personal value of freedom, it's, am I liberating myself?
Or am I enslaving myself?
Or am I enslaving myself? Yeah. So if this is a value of mine, am I holding myself to that standard? Or where today did I enslave myself? Where today did I not show up fully? Or if I'm getting dressed, for an example, if I'm looking in my closet and I choose not to wear something, why was that? Is there a part of me that felt like suppressed? Or can I free myself in not caring what people think? Can I free myself in being liberated enough to live out my fullest,
do what you want to do.
Expression?
Do what you want to do. You had this happen the other day. So when we had Revive. So every month, if you're in Vegas, I run Revive Breathwork, and we were getting ready for it. And you put on this amazing dress. Was it? No, the pantsuit.
Yep.
It was like so amazing. And I made a comment that made you like, you tell the story.
Yeah, I came in and it was the first time that you saw the outfit, and it was out there for me. It was like amazing. Day 2 or day 3 of like dopamine dressing. And you were like, oh, what are you going to wear today? And I was like, oh, I kind of want to wear this like thing, but I don't know. It's a lot. So first of all, I was judging myself for what I truly wanted. My inner self was like, I want to wear this, but I was judging myself first. And without even knowing what it was, you were like, yeah, wear it, do it. Mm-hmm. And I came in wearing, and you were like, oh my gosh, you look like you're going to the Oscars. And I was like, well, I'm not going for that. Like, I don't know. I came up with this whole not elaborate,
that was bad or something.
Yeah, it was like you saying I was going to the Oscars reminded me of when I was young, I would get backhanded compliments that were really digs at like, you should be less. Mm-hmm. So to me, I heard, oh my gosh, you look like you're going to the Oscars. I heard it in the tone of like, you look like you're going to the Oscars.
Why are you wearing that?
Why are you wearing that? That is not the place. That is not appropriate. Like, that's what my brain heard, because that's what suppressed my expression back then. So I immediately responded, and you were like, I didn't say that, but it was like, you were like, I didn't say that.
But like,
so check yourself. Like, whatever it was, you were like playful in being like, I didn't say that. That was you. Yeah. So like, check yourself. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh, you're right. That was totally me that said that. Yeah. And like, that's a fear of mine.
Well, it's in those moments where we get to do the real reprogramming. Right. It's in those moments where you get to recondition yourself and you're like, okay, I can see here. I'm hearing an old story. This is too much. I've gone too far. I've crossed the boundary here. And now I'm embarrassed. Maybe. Right. I feel embarrassed. And now I want to like contract and go into hiding and take this off and go put on something way less.
Yep.
Versus, and in my interpretation of it is like, oh my God, you look amazing. Like, you look so good. And right, this is the importance of the filter that we all see our lives through, that we're filtering information through our past traumas and our past wounding, if we're not self-aware and we can't catch it. And then she had the opportunity to like, what do you want this to mean? Like, you get to do what you want. Mm-hmm. And if you feel good, like, I think you look amazing. If you feel good and you do what you want to do. And that is like part of personal liberation, where it's like, I have agency. I get to decide for myself what I want, versus needing to downplay or be smaller or less than, to not draw attention to myself, to not rock the boat, to not get in trouble, to not whatever the story is. Versus, I'm owning this and I'm going to choose to do this because this feels good for me, and I can be confident in that, versus insecure, right? Mm-hmm. Because confidence is something that so many people are like, want more of. So how has your confidence changed as you've allowed yourself to start to step into your own kind of personal liberation through this and do what you want to do and what feels good for you, versus like what everyone else is doing?
When you liberate yourself, you give other people the opportunity to liberate themselves. And I feel like my liberation and self-expression currently is because I have been around some incredible people that have liberated themselves, which wore off on me and gave me the encouragement to show up as my most authentic self, which instilled a level of confidence. And, like I said earlier, I postured up and I've shown up in the world in a way where it feels like it's in alignment of, my true self, of my spirit, of my soul. And when you experience that level of confidence, you're kind of, at least for me, I'm kind of like always trying to find my way back to that. And I really have found my confidence through self-expression, and watching how that has liberated other people around me, and the amount of DMs that I've gotten from people being like, oh, I wore pink today because it's my favorite color and you inspired me to like show up that. And it's just like, that reminder of, right. Have you ever heard the quote, "You are the only you, and that is your power"? It reminds me, like my self-expression, all of that, it's just really reminded me, you are the youest you. Like, go be the youest you that there is, because any other version, you're just like making it up, and it's not authentic, and it's not you. And no wonder you don't feel confident, because it's not you. There's a part of your spirit that's holding you back. That's like, nah, girl, that is not it. And then when you stand in alignment of like who you really are, and you experience that confidence, you're like, oh, right. Okay. This is true for me. This is true for me. So confidence for me has been like an indicator of alignment of like, this is true for me.
I love that. That confidence is an indicator of alignment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful. Because when you're out of alignment, out of authenticity, out of integrity with yourself, trying to be someone you're not, trying to play a role, trying to pretend and fake it till you make it, you're going to be a little bit insecure because you know it's not real. Right? So I think what you're saying is like, hello, people. When you start to wake up to the fact that your only job on this planet is to learn to be yourself.
Yeah.
Your only job is to be yourself. And then your real job, real, quote unquote, real career, your family, your friendships, your hobbies are an extension and an expression of who you are. When you learn to be who you are, then you express that in the world through all of these different avenues of your life. And that's what we do, you know, like in our friendships, in our community, in the Revive Women's group, like we're building a community of people who are committed to being themselves.
Yeah. You can feel that, like in the presence of the community, of the people.
And frankly, if you're a woman and you're still watching or listening to this, like within the Revive Women's membership, these are the topics we're exploring. It's like, where am I not personally liberated in my sexuality? Where am I repressed in my creative expression or asking for my needs or setting boundaries or in my, you know, passion or, you know, like what lights me up? What are my having conversations? What are my values? Is my authentic code so that I can know and kind of reverse engineer what's true, what's not. That's what we do inside that container. And so I have found it as the leader of that group so helpful, not even just as a participant. You are a participant of like having themes and topics like this where we deep dive and can like peel it apart together and unravel it together.
Well, and get to the source, get to the root of like what that really is, which I think a lot of groups and a lot of self-development is like, okay, well, what brings me joy? Well, it's like, well, what caused you to suppress your joy? Like that was a big question for me, is like, well, what's the root of why I'm not showing up in my joy? Like what's really at the base of it? You know, that inner child work of really diving to the root of,
and if you don't, and this is why I do the work with I do of root cause work with people, is anything else is a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Anything else is a cover up. Because if you don't get to the root, that thing will just grow right back. You know what I mean? So you can slap on a new wig or hairstyle or new outfit or a new hobby and think you're self-expressed. But if you don't really understand why all of that's been repressed for so long, it will fizzle out. You know what I mean? You'll be on to the next thing. And, you know, what we're committed to with Revive is really building a community of leaders and healers and other facilitators, but just human beings that want to live from their heart and want to be authentic. And, you know, there's no greater feeling that I know of than being received and feeling like I belong somewhere just as I am, you know, no matter where you are on this journey. You're like, if you're still figuring it out, that's okay. You're still welcome. You know what I mean? If you're still, you know, noticing that you're wearing a bunch of masks and you're trying what everybody else is doing to see if that fits for you, like, that's okay. But we're going to call you forward. You know what I mean? We're not going to call you out, but we're going to call you forward and be like, you sure about that? You really want it? Is that what you want? Because we support whatever is true for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's some freedom in that, I think.
Absolutely. I think that the community that we've built has been a huge, undeniable piece of my self-expression journey. Having that safety and that place to be witnessed and be seen for all of who I am. I think there's a lot of people in the world, there's a lot of communities in the world that, you know, may say all of you is welcome here, but it's an entirely different experience when you feel that. You can feel the love and acceptance and almost expectation of like, all I want is for you to be you. And like all of you is welcome here. And, you know, whether that's through the breathwork events, through the women's group, or through just our friend group, our community in general, it has been an insanely beautiful, huge, impactful piece of my journey. So for those of you looking to experience, you know, a safe place, if you're here in Vegas, that's definitely a place that I would recommend. And yeah, community can change a lot.
Yeah. Well, because
for you,
in my experience, is what I call an expander.
Oh yeah.
What it is an expander, because especially when you come and get around people who are doing this work, and like you said, they've liberated, not that like I have reached pure liberation, and I am not limited in any way, shape, or form. That's not what I'm saying. But you get around people who embody this work. They serve as an expander, which shows you that it's possible, because you can now see it, so that you can believe that it's possible for yourself. And if Nikki can do it, then maybe I can do it. And if Tori can do it, and if Laura can do it, and if Brenda can do it, and if Drea can do it, like, well, then maybe it's possible for me too. And that's what I mean for an expander. If you hear us and you feel like I'm so far away from that, you need to get around people who that's a normalcy for, because it will show you that it is absolutely possible for you too. And if you don't have anyone around you, that's why reading, for me, before I was able to get to where I am now, I would read autobiographies of people. I would listen to podcasts of people telling their story like this, to be the expander I needed to show me that I could have that, or I could manifest that, or I could have a life that looked like that, or friendships that looked like that, or relationships that looked like that. But I didn't know anybody in my real life that was living that way. And that's what we're trying to do too with Revive Women. So if that's interesting to you, go to the show notes. It's also in the link in my bio and in the Revive Las Vegas bio as well. And that's what we're doing here at Revive. But I want you to kind of wrap up by adding anything else that you haven't shared that you think is important on this topic. And then also, like, what are you working on right now? I know that you got a lot of creative projects, but like, what's got your excitement? What's lighting you up as we wrap it up?
Like I said, my creativity has been a huge part of my journey recently. And I've been really diving into what that means for me, because I really care deeply about creating impact for people's lives, and being able to do that in a creative way has been really exciting lately. So I've been working on a lot of interior design projects, a lot of graphic design in the web design space.
For those that don't know, Nikki is the mastermind behind my website, behind all of our branding. She's the one that created the logos that you see for Revive, all of the color palettes. Everything for the Coachable podcast came from this beautiful genius brain. So I can't take credit for any of that. And it's an amazing thing to be able to see you support people and helping them extract their gifts and like turn it into a visual representation of themselves, because that's what you do.
Yeah. And that really came out of a understanding that we all have our own unique magic. And one of the things I've been saying a lot lately to myself and to those around me is like, just own your magic, because like you really are the only you. And if you don't show up every day as that, like, what
are we doing?
What are we doing? And so yeah, like I have such a deep passion for extracting everyone's unique magic because I deeply believe that we all have it. And so yeah, I've been doing that through branding, which has been a really fun journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She is a woman of many talents, and we get to watch whatever you touch, turn into this just magical, beautiful expression of your heart. And you bring that into our community, you bring that into our home, you bring that to our friends. And I'm so grateful, and you make everything better. So I'm just,
thank you.
It's been such a pleasure, and it's been so fun to watch you step into yourself and step into your confidence and own your magic.
Yeah.
Because as much as you were able to see everyone else's magic, there was a part in your life where you couldn't see your own.
Not at all.
And it's time. It's time for the world.
Clean my glasses off.
It's time for you to see what I have been seeing for so long.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
I hope this resonated. I hope this touched you. I trust that for those who are ready for this message, you've received it fully. And my invitation is for you to either come into greater alignment with your own truth, whether that's through your own expression, your own creativity, or through community, whether that's with us or in your own city and state, wherever you live, just showing up every day as who you are and letting and knowing that that is enough and always will be enough. That's your only qualifier. And yeah, we support you in that in any way we can. So we hope you'll share this with a friend if this touched you. And we ask if you want to say thank you and give back to the show so that it can continue to reach the people that need it. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you get your show, whether that's on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, or Apple and Spotify. You can give us a 5-star review if you think we deserve it, and leave us a little rating. That would mean the world. Until next week, you guys, go be coachable. Love you. Bye.